Everybody's heading for Woolworth and Woolco to get set for Halloween. There's costumes of TV favorites like Wonder Woman and the Hulk. There's popular characters from Star Wars, and there's superheroes like Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, and many more at bare bones prices, $2.38 to $4.17. And there's Spook Sticks, Face Pops, Hallowitches, wrapped candy of every kind, all at the favorite Halloween haunts, Woolworth and Woolco.
Trick or treat!
Good evening, Clarice. I own a motel not too far from here, and you'd be welcome to spend the night in one of the empty rooms if you'd like.
It burns! Oh, it burns! And I'm the devil.
And here we are, back once again on another episode of the Necronomicast. We've got Brian
and Doug. Hi.
Hey, and we are joined by Rob Caprilozzi.
Hey guys.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Rob has just created this great new documentary that we saw advertised or reported about on Bloody Disgusting. So it was right up our alley, and we watched it right away. And so glad that we did. And we're so glad that you're on the show tonight.
Oh, thank you guys so much for the kind words. I really appreciate it. This, it was a basically documentary of love for me because I was a huge fan of these things growing up.
Oh, me too. That's what kind of totally resonated when I was watching it.
Yeah. How old are you, Rob? Can I ask?
Yeah. I'm 45. So, I was born in 75, right in the wheelhouse there for, for the Ben Cooper things right before the Star Wars and all that cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm about to be 46. I was born in 73, so it's right in my time too.
Oh, perfect.
And my birthday was yesterday. I turned 45 yesterday, so we got.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thanks.
3 old guys.
I was just going to say
each other here.
I was just going to say we got 3 old guys waxing nostalgic here.
That's awesome.
Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up and stuff like that.
Okay. I was born in Connecticut here. And from, a little kid, I remember, still to this day, Halloween is my favorite holiday. I grew up watching horror films with my dad. This is so still being in Connecticut here, I've started the website Horror News Network, which is one of the leading horror news sites on the internet. My wife and I and our team run Connecticut Horror Fest. And this is the first documentary which I've done. That's through H&N Productions called Halloween in a Box.
Halloween in a Box is the name of the show that we're talking about. So yeah, you started all these things. Big fan of horror when you were growing up. Did you what were some of your favorite films growing up?
My all-time favorite is Halloween, without a doubt. I've always been, a huge fan of that, and it was always a huge thing. I remember watching, a bunch of really cool things growing up with my dad, like Don't Look in the Basement, and crazy things like Black Hill. The Howling is in my opinion, still the greatest werewolf movie of all times, and I think they have the greatest werewolves that's ever been on screen here. Like, what is this, like maybe 35 years later or whatever. But yeah, so I grew up a huge fan of horror movies, and it's just kind of, now running Connecticut Horror Fest, I have the opportunity to bring some of these actors and actresses into Connecticut and meet fans. Fans get to meet them here in the state that I live in, which is pretty cool.
So this Connecticut Horror, what's it called again?
Connecticut Horror Fest.
So that's probably a lot like here in Nebraska. We don't have a convention that rolls through here, but we have down a couple hours away in Kansas City, Crypticon.
Oh, yep, exactly. It's just like that. Except ours up here is a one-day show. Our state isn't too big here, and generally we get all the horror fans out in one day. And last time, which was September 14th, we had Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith and Danielle Harris and Doug Bradley and the Cenobites. So it was a pretty cool time.
Nice. Yeah, we've had the opportunity to meet quite a few of the names that you just mentioned that roll through the Crypticon in Kansas City. So yeah, like me, you, and Doug, we have like similar histories. We grew up here in the Midwest. Here in Omaha, I tell the story kind of often, but like my first real scary horror film was Friday the 13th Part 3, but I had to watch it on HBO over a series of nights, like after my parents went to bed, and I'd sneak downstairs and I'd turn on HBO and I'd watch like maybe 15 minutes before I've had enough of that. And
wow.
Then the next night I catch another 20 minutes or 10 minutes of it. And so that's how I kind of grew up with the horror bug.
Yeah. So that, I'm guessing was the 3D version, of Part 3, right?
Yeah, but not on HBO. They didn't have it in 3D. I didn't.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in 3D yet. All these years.
Never?
I've never. Well,
what?
I've seen it with the red and blue glasses, but not the polarized sunglasses. The way it was meant to be seen.
I thought it was meant to be in blue. I thought it was meant to be in the suck version. That's what I got in my version that I got. It's the red and green, and
that's what was released on DVD. But I think in the theater, Zip was telling me he saw it in '83. Zip's one of our co-hosts, Rob.
Okay.
And Zip's, I think he said he saw it in the theater, and they had like the more of the polarized sunglasses.
Really? Wow. Okay.
I don't know. I guess.
I bet it ain't no better.
Yeah. You're probably all right.
So okay. So we're running all these things. We're doing all these things. And now you've got this documentary, which is fantastic. Halloween in a Box. You've got it on Amazon Prime. It's also on Google Play, other streaming
YouTube movies, right? Mm-hmm.
Right on. Tell us a little bit what inspired you to make it. Like I'm going to get a camera. I'm going to film this and write this. And what was your creative process through it?
Well, I've always been a huge fan of Halloween, as I mentioned, and to me, whenever I see old photos of people wearing those Ben Cooper Collegeville costumes, it kind of does something. It's so cool to look at, but it's also almost frightening to look at the same time. So kind of just having that, and so I grew up wearing, I wore tons of these costumes growing up, and I was at my mom's house. I was looking through old photos. I was like, oh, here's a photo of me. Here's another photo of me wearing one. And here's a photo with my friends wearing them. And so it kind of like, I looked on the internet. I was like, what had happened with these companies? And, honestly, it was kind of hard to find information on there. And it was kind of amazing to me that there wasn't even a picture of Ben Cooper anywhere on the internet.
Oh.
And I was like, who is this mystery man that started this company that touched millions of kids, so it was pretty cool. So from there, I went on a hunt to find the guys that ran Cooper and Collegeville and Halco, and it took a long time to get in touch with these guys. We have to remember these companies went out in the early 90s. It was pretty much before the internet, and at that point, those guys that ran the companies were probably in their 50s. So now you're thinking those guys are up near their 70s, and it's kind of hard to track someone down that really doesn't use the computer and everything, and so it was pretty interesting to go through and finally get in touch with the families of the guys that of these companies and talk to them about what had happened and what they've done.
And you did a good job of, like you said, tracking them down, but you had good representation. Everybody thinks, first of all, I think of the Ben Cooper, but you had good representation of the three main companies that produce those kinds of costumes.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, everybody, obviously Ben Cooper was the biggest. And when you think of them, most people see them, they probably think Ben Cooper, but, Collegeville had amazing licenses, and Halco actually was pretty both of those guys. And, so it kind of fit to, kind of show them all in one documentary and just kind of kind of go through all the licenses that they've had and the stories around them.
Yeah, one thing I really enjoyed when I was watching it was the background, the stories of how things behind the scenes, not only like you said, gathering the licenses. Like one company would have it one year for some things, and then it would change. But also like the how they were made. Like you had so many great pictures of all these great costumes, and all these memories kept flooding back for me of the rubber band pulling my hair and and you know, like hoping that I didn't rip the costume before I went trick or treating. And you know, getting kind of cut a little bit around my nose and mouth from the sharpness of the mouth and nose holes.
I mean, it's funny that, you know, everybody, you could even still, you know, remember the smell of like the vinyl on the costumes and everything. It was cool because a lot of people, you know, as I found out, since we're all in the same age group here, you know, shared a lot of the same memories. I mean, what I thought was really cool was always going to the store and there'd just be like piles of these boxes, and you just like kind of go through them and see what one, you know, you want it to be. It almost seemed like the possibilities were endless when it came to that.
Yeah, and I remember I got something I want to say. This is
We're hogging the mic here. I'm sorry.
No. I thought I could add this stupid story. My thing always was like I would pick the costume that where the smock or whatever actually looked the closest to the actual clothes that the monster wore, because I was one of those kids that was like, Frankenstein's monster is not going to have a picture of Frankenstein's monster on his chest. He's going to be wearing a suit or something like that. So I noticed that going through. I'm like, oh yeah, look, like half of them just have a picture of the mask again on the smock. But
that was so bizarre, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was so funny how they just kind of like, all right, it was almost like they really didn't know what to do with the smocks. They're just like, let's
kids,
just throw
you know?
this picture. Yeah, so
kids aren't
that
going
was
to
pretty
care,
awesome.
but we cared. We
Yeah.
knew.
That was so funny. I mean, it was really cool. You know, just to the thing that I found like really awesome about this is when I first started putting it together, I put something on the website and on social media, letting people know I'm creating the doc, and then all of a sudden I got flooded with people wanting to send me their photos and their home videos, and that was really awesome. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to do in the doc is kind of just I wanted everybody that see this to be like really touched by the nostalgia factor. And I think with everybody like you know, allowing me to use their videos and pictures in the documentary, it really, you know, it did a lot of that. I mean, that was awesome. And you know, if you think about it, that's kind of hard because I know at least my family wasn't rich enough to have a video camera back in the, you know, early 80s and mid 80s there. So it was pretty cool to get that footage from, you know, from people. And it was cool that they kept it after all these years.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. You know, like when you said we didn't have a video camera growing up, and my mom and dad, they took all their pictures and pretty much produced slides out of them. So in my studio where I'm recording this tonight, behind Doug on a piano bench, there's a scanner and another machine that I'm using to like go through decades worth of slides. And I know there's going to be a picture of me wearing the E.T. Ben Cooper costume. Maybe it was Collegeville, but the
Collegeville, yeah.
I had the E.T. one. I had, let's see, it was on the tip of my tongue. Oh, Spider-Man.
Yep. I had Spider-Man too. I remember.
Yeah, Spider-Man was pretty good.
That's a good one.
I think when I was real little, I had the Casper one, and then I had the Boss one. It was so cool. It was the Batman one, but the smock was made of cloth. So I did some. So after I watched your documentary, I watched. I did some research. That was actually the Ben Cooper play suit.
Yeah, the play suits. Those were tougher. They made them for Planet of the Apes. Some of the Planet of the Apes characters, Batman, and man, I forget there was a few others they made. There was Bionic Man and Bionic Woman as well.
Nice. Now, a funny thing about these costumes, or here's a little Halloween memory of mine. My parents were a lot older than other kids' parents when I was born. My dad was pushing 70. He was like 69, and then he turned 70 a month after I was born, and my mom was 40. Okay. So picture this. So we're talking in the 80s, early to mid-80s. Star Wars is really big. I wanted to be, for Halloween, a stormtrooper. Okay, I ended up being Luke Skywalker, but when we were like at Target looking through all the Ben Cooper costumes, and I told my dad, who was, he was a young man during World War II. I'm like, yeah, I want to be a stormtrooper.
Oh no.
Yeah, and he thought I was like, gonna, goose step down the street.
Oh man, damn kids, right?
Yeah, he didn't understand. He was horrified that I was gonna dress like a Nazi soldier, and I was like, no, the guy from Star Wars,
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
Generation gap.
Wow.
Total generation gap.
Oh man. Well, there was the Cooper made the Red Skull costume, right? And then they ended up taking it off the market
Oh, that was
like
cool.
a year or two later because they, I guess they found out the guy was like a Nazi. I don't know. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I love this whole trend right now of kind of going back. People our age making these films, nostalgia-ridden things like Stranger Things. I really like. There's the documentary that's on Netflix. It's like the Toys That Made Us.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't seen that yet, but people have been talking to me about it. I hear it's really awesome.
Yeah, you got to see it.
Yeah, especially with your eye for for that era, because your documentary just sits right in there, just so nice with all those kinds of things, and it was really a lot of fun to watch. How long did it take for you to make it?
Oh man, you know what? I mean, I'm embarrassed to say this. This is my first documentary,
right?
And it took 4 years to put together. A lot of that was me, trial and error. I never went to film school. I was just doing this out of love.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it was, messing around with the audio and one of the guys in there I interviewed at New York Comic Con, and it was. There was like 1,000 people around me interviewing the guy, and it sounds like it's so. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever been to like Comic Cons or anything, but it's like, it was really hard. So it took a lot of time for me to go through it. So it was a lot of trial and error. But I was happy when it was complete, and I was happy to put it out. We actually had the premiere of it in Connecticut here. It was one night. And I had Frank Romano, who was he's the 95-year-old former artist for Ben Cooper. He came up and he was at the premiere, and we were on stage talking about the film. He was really happy, and that made it all worth it to me.
What did he draw? What was he responsible for? Any costumes?
All the Star Wars. He was the Ben Cooper artist from the 60s to like the 90s. So any costume in mask, basically that was him.
So he was the guy that designed all those.
Yeah, like Hulk and Spider-Man and Marvel and all that stuff and Star Wars, and yes, that was him drawing it. And what's pretty cool is he goes around to a few shows now. He's still painting to this day. Let me tell you about this guy. First of all, he's 95 years old. He's in better shape than most people I know. He was setting up as a vendor at Connecticut Horror Fest, and this guy's 95 years old. He was carrying in his own steel grids and setting things up. I was like, this guy is amazing. and I mean, it's weird. It's like, it seems like he gets in better shape and younger every time I see this guy. But he's an amazing artist, and we actually went to his son's house to interview him, and just some of the sculptures that this guy did is amazing. I mean, his artwork is absolutely incredible, and I'm glad that that he was happy with this, and hopefully this documentary will shine another little light on him. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Very nice.
Watching it also, you did a great job of explaining to the viewer. I thought, well, it's just going to be a documentary about, Ben Cooper and just the costumes. But you really did a great job of kind of explaining how Halloween has become this mass-marketed, totally consumer-driven. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean it's like how they took the holiday, a very simple early holiday, with trick-or-treating and things, and how it
the popularity has exploded.
Yeah, and how it's all, the great merchandise and everything. I mean, like today, you got your Spirit Halloweens, you got your Party City's got their own store for Halloween, Target, Walmart, all those big box stores have incredible displays, and people who spend the economy gets this boost of billions of dollars every year in October from people just decorating their homes and getting costumes and spending it on Halloween. And you do a great job of showing, how it just became more and more popular.
Well, thank you. It was kind of interesting. If you look at it still, like, you could almost owe all of that to Ben Cooper and Collegeville, what had happened today, because Ruby's is actually the company that supplies Spirit Halloween store, and Ruby's bought Ben Cooper and Collegeville at auction. So it basically allowed them from doing a ninja costume to like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle costume or a Batman costume. So it allowed them to get licenses, and with those huge licenses, it now it allowed them to distribute their items into stores like Spirit Halloween and like Walmart's and this and that. So I mean, I actually interviewed the guy that owns Ruby's in that documentary, and he talks about how that was like the biggest boost to their business, getting Ben Cooper and Collegeville at auction.
So Spirit Halloween is owned by Ruby's? Is that what I heard?
It's not. They're not owned by Ruby's, but they get their product from Ruby's. Well, I would imagine at least probably 80% of their product, because a lot of that stuff, if you look at like Ruby's tags and that's basically where they get all their items from.
Well, that's cool. And you had this book that was well, before I get into that, well, no, I mentioned it, so let's get into it. The book that's in there, and I've looked on eBay for it, the 13 Ways to Celebrate Halloween.
Right.
Explain a little bit how that came together. I know it's in the documentary, but people will find this real interesting.
Well, it all kind of ties back to the Tylenol scare. So in 1982, at the end of September, there was it was basically the first act of domestic terrorism. So someone in the Chicago area poisoned Tylenol pills. This is before they had the safety cap. So someone took they opened the pills, put cyanide in them, closed them back up. They did this into a number of bottles, and it killed a bunch of people. And so basically this all started coming out around Halloween, early October. So that caused a huge panic for people that didn't want to send their kids out for Halloween, because back then a lot of people would throw loose candies in the kids' bags, or there wasn't really cops checking the children's Halloween candy or stuff like that. So this caused like a real big scare for people. They saw people in Chicago just dying after taking these pills. Sometimes people would put like, kind of medications in that with the kids' candy. So, the people were really worried that, if someone could target Tylenol, that, children's Halloween candy would be next. And it went so far as to where the governor of Chicago at that time, or excuse me, the mayor of Chicago, wanted to cancel Halloween, saying she wouldn't send her kids out. And it reached all the way over here on the East Coast, with the governor's mansion in Connecticut canceled trick-or-treating. Some towns in Massachusetts canceled trick-or-treating. And so here you have Ben Cooper, Collegeville, and its other competitors, so something's threatening their business. And if there was no more trick-or-treating, then that would pretty much make their business extinct. So what I thought was really cool is hearing that is these competitors came together and they all met in Ben Cooper's showroom, and they kind of sat down and they formed an alliance of how to handle this situation. So they put together this really big, in their alliance was called the Halloween Celebration Committee. So what they did is they put together that book, 13 Great Ways to Celebrate Halloween, and they distributed it to like 5 and dime stores, to supermarkets, and what it told people to do in there, it's basically checking Halloween candy, other things you could do maybe besides trick-or-treating, how to have a safe, trick-or-treating event. And so it basically told kids and parents what they could do to celebrate the holiday safer.
Yeah, and you did a great job right there of kind of outlining what you go through in great detail in the documentary. So I don't want people to sit and listen to this podcast and think, oh, well, that happened. No, you got to watch this documentary because there's all these news footage and interviews, and you kind of just really go through it very, very diligently talking about that. And I remember being a kid and the whole Tylenol thing, but I didn't, until I watched the documentary, I didn't piece any of that kind of stuff together, how the impact on October 31st. And I remember, like, my dad, like, looking through the Halloween candy and saying stuff like, well, where'd you get this popcorn ball? Well, Mrs. Peterson was giving out the popcorn balls. Well, all right, she's like, because he thought maybe there's, ground up glass or something in it. And then,
right.
And then before he always rated my Snickers, and he would take the little fun size bar, unwrap it, and then like break it in half in case there was a needle or some shit or some shit. In, what I mean? But he'd break it in half and eat it, and so I mean that really gripped. I mean that fear really gripped.
And we were actually. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you're in Connecticut. We're in Omaha. I remember plain as day. It happened on the West Coast. I mean, it really shook the nation, and they never found out who put the cyanide in those pills.
Isn't that crazy? They thought years later it was a Unabomber, but they I guess they cleared him, so it still remains to this day unsolved, which is frightening. You know what I mean?
I think I know what your next documentary should be.
Oh,
I don't know, but
it's been cool. But you know what? What was also interesting about that is, also around that time with the scare, like people came up with the whole razor blades and apples thing, and I mean it was absolute like madness. You know what I mean? Like it was like a huge panic, and because they never caught anybody, it was never. It never like eased the fear, I guess.
Yeah.
So that book, I was saying, I've been looking on eBay since watching your documentary. Is that available? Have you seen copies? I mean, yeah, you've seen copies because of your documentary. But I mean, are there copies floating around, or is there a PDF someplace of that, or?
I believe last time I saw a PDF. Yes, I do. I actually have the link to a scanned images of them, which I could send you.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be real cool. I'd love to see that. Now, with your documentary, 4 years in the making, a labor of love, it's available once again on Amazon, Google Play, YouTube.
Yep.
Is there any plans to release like a physical copy of it?
That's a good question, Ryan. I mean, like I said, this is my first documentary, and I obviously have to license a lot of footage that's in there. And when you license the footage, they ask you, is it for just digital streaming, or is it a hard copy? And what I licensed was just for the digital streaming, and my distributor Indie Rights just does the digital streaming thing. I was thinking of maybe in the future approaching them, seeing how you would make the move to the physical copies. But I don't think I've got there just yet, but we're just kind of enjoying the ride, and just having a good time with it now. And it's cool just to I mean, look, I'm under no false pretenses. It's not like an award-winning documentary. I'm just happy to make it, to have people our age take a look at it and hopefully remember some good times they had trick-or-treating, and maybe remember some of the cool costumes they wore. So that was my goal for it. I'm happy that it's out there, and that it that I got some kind words from people saying thank you for helping me relive a little bit of my childhood, and that. So it's pretty cool. It feels pretty good just to finally have it out there.
Nice.
Yeah, well done. Goal accomplished.
Thank you.
Score.
Yeah, it was tons of fun. And when I was reading the description of it, I thought, well, that looks really interesting, and I was really surprised at the length. I mean, it's a good hour and a half.
Yeah, I had a lot to cut out, and I feel bad, like all the extra things that I cut out.
Wow.
I wish it could have been in there, but then we'd probably be looking at like a 3 hour documentary or something. It was, I had, it was tough, cutting a lot of stuff, and just because there were so many licenses that and so many important events in how they got the license that I couldn't, I had to cut things from the 70s, or I had to I had a bigger thing in there about the Bionic Woman and the Bionic Man, because that was a huge show in the 70s. And, I had to cut a lot of that out just to make room for like the Planet of the Apes and Star Wars and all the other costumes in the 70s. So it was tough, and it was really tough, cutting things out. But I guess you got to do what you got to do.
Do you have any of your old costumes?
I do, actually.
Like, do you have like a whole do you have like a whole room full of them? Or
I don't. I luckily I didn't get that crazy, but there was a time I started buying a bunch on like eBay. I have what do I have back there? I have the Wolfman costume, which I used to promote the when the documentary came on Amazon Prime. I have an ET costume. I got this really old Halco witch costume. It's got to be from like the late 50s, and that looks creepy as hell.
I bet.
I have a few other. I think I have like a really early Disney Mickey Mouse one, and I'm drawing a blank. A few others. I want to get Barnabas from Dark Shadows that they created, but that's kind of hard to find.
Yeah, when I was watching it, and Doug, you're probably the same way. I could smell the mask. I could feel it pinch. I can feel the putting on that flame retardant smock and walking down the street and getting hot in it because it obviously didn't breathe.
Oh man!
And out here we had to have our winter coat over it anyway.
Oh
all
yeah,
the time.
Same here in Connecticut. Yep.
Yeah,
it's pretty cold here. I always remember. It was just funny wearing all those things. You'd be all bundled up. Of course, it'd be part of the costume would be ripped by the end of the night. But man, that was part of the fun, I guess.
We had school parties back then too. So I had to be real careful. My parents would even sit me down. Now be careful. This has got to last through trick or treating. So don't get it ripped at school. You have Miss Krajewski untie it and tie it for you. Put it back in the box. Don't don't get it ripped up because, there's been times when my mom had to tie a knot in the elastic band because it pulled through the side of the mask. And...
Yeah, I remember those for sure.
I got another funny story. You know what I did with one of mine, and they must have made probably a Robin costume to go along with Batman, and Robin was my favorite superhero. And so I wanted to make a superhero costume that, of course, Robin, the Ben Cooper probably had a picture of Robin on it, right? So I'm like, that's not going to fly. So I made my own costume with a red jacket and a cape and everything like that. But for the mask, I took a Ben Cooper mask. Either it was Robin or another one that had black eyes, and I cut out just the black around the eyes. And so my Robin mask, and I have pictures of this, is basically a Ben Cooper plastic mask, only the eyes and the rubber band go around that. And that thing scratched the holy hell out of my face.
Man.
It was I cut it myself. It's all jagged.
Oh, so you actually cut the forehead and the mouth,
I cut everything away except for the eyes.
Jeez.
And then the part that was stapled to the band.
I bet that hurt like hell.
Oh yeah, I remember now. It's it was terrible. The costume was great, except for Mom, you bought me tights even for this costume. You should have got me a better mask.
Wow, yeah, you might as well be having a razor blade on your face at that point.
It was tough.
So what happened to the Ben Cooper factory? There's a great part where you're showing where, how big it was and everything. What happened to the factory itself?
So the factory's still there. I forget exactly what it's called now, but it's actually still there. Another company, they obviously redid the buildings there. But yeah, it's still there. And what was cool in the documentary, the Ben Cooper artist Frank Romano went back and kind of went into the building. They allowed him to come in, and they still actually had the sign which said Ben Cooper's office hanging up there. And he got a picture with it and everything. So it was just really cool to see him kind of go back and kind of relive some good time for his in his life.
I always thought it'd be cool to like use some of those old masks and use them as decorations around my house.
Oh yeah, I think I follow someone on Instagram who puts those kind of masks like on. They have like a Halloween tree, supposed to be like a Christmas tree. So that's pretty cool. But those masks, like I don't know if you guys have seen them. A company has started like reproducing them lately. They're a little bigger than the normal version, but yeah, they're definitely.
Those.
You do? Okay.
They're behind a guy that you interview in the doc, right? I think one of the guys has a couple.
That's right.
Yeah,
right.
they're who makes those? Zombie a Go-Go or something a Go-Go?
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It could be them.
Yeah, I have like a bunch of those from my home haunt. They're really great because my home haunt is set in the 80s, so I bought a bunch of those. Yeah, it's pretty cool, I think.
That's awesome.
Doug's built this extravagant haunt in his basement, and proceeds go to charity. And it's authentic to the times. That's for sure.
Oh wow, that sounds so fun. That's cool.
I'll send you a link, Rob.
All right, I'm in for that.
Cool. And we have a good time here around Halloween.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, that sounds good. I mean, you know what sucks for me is where we live. My wife and I live in a condo, and there's no kids that come here.
Boo.
I could be giving out like $100 bills, and nobody comes to the door. It's so frustrating. I'm like. I saw somebody last year and I was like yelling at them down the street. I'm like, hey, come here. We have candy. And I'm like, what the hell? It's not supposed to work like this, you know? It's, but yeah, I mean, I miss, the old Halloweens. I miss going out. You mentioned that, Brian, you mentioned that when you went to school, when you get there, you guys would have like Halloween parties and everybody would have their Halloween costumes on.
Yeah.
That was really cool because, back then I think like probably like 8 out of 10 kids in my school all were wearing like those Ben Cooper type costumes. That was really fun.
Yeah. Now, I'm married with 3 kids, and one's in 8th grade, one's in 5th grade, and one's in 1st grade. And so what I've really enjoyed being a lover of Halloween in this whole season is I get to relive the trick-or-treating that my kids do. I get to relive that. So that's super fun. Like getting together with parents, and we'll pull like a little wagon, to store the candy when it gets too heavy for the kids to carry. We also store beers in there. All the dads are drinking beer. Neighbors are sitting out in their driveway with and we live by an elementary school. So there's all these young families, tons of them, and so there's people sitting out with hand out Jello shots to the adults, and they've got their fire pits in the driveway. And no shit, I live behind my house. There's a farm and they grow feed corn, and to the south of them, there's a haunted attraction. It's like it's called Scary Acres, and there's 3 little haunted house kind of themes that you go and you can tour through, and it's super popular with the young kids nowadays.
Right.
So I can sit out in October most nights, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. I can sit on my deck at night and maybe have a beer or whatever, and I can hear a chainsaw and people screaming, like awesome. real softly out in the distance. So.
Wow.
So it's been. I'm sad that like my youngest, he's 7, and I just wonder like, gosh, I'll have when he's done trick or treating, I'll just have to wait till I have grandkids or whatever, so I can go trick or treating again. But it's tons of fun, man, and so that's why I love the nostalgia. I love the. Just all the time and effort. I can tell you love the subject. This wasn't just some guy that was just making a documentary. I can tell that you thoroughly researched it. You worked hard to put it together, and it's great. And for guys like Doug and I, we Doug and I was texting him. I don't remember who texted who first.
You texted me and said you were watching this, and I'm like, "What is that? Where did I watch it?" And then we watched it the same night.
Oh, okay, it was the same night.
Yeah,
I didn't know if you watched it the next day or we know.
No, it was at the same time. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh my God, we have to consume this now."
Yes.
That's awesome. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch that. It was really, it was something that I couldn't believe it wasn't done already. You know what I mean? Just think about all the people that wore those costumes. And I mean, the hardest thing in that documentary for me was finding these guys. I mean, it was tough because the guys that you got to remember, these companies went out of business, and it was like, so I think they thought someone contacting them, they don't want to talk about a company that went out of business, you know what I mean? So there was some kind of hard feelings there, and I had to kind of put them at ease and tell them what I was doing this documentary for and what my goal was for it. I mean, I showed them pictures when I was a kid, and I let them know, their company touched so many people's lives, and so it was really hard to get in touch with these people and then get them to agree to do it. There were some points where I didn't think that was going to happen, but luckily everybody came around, and at the end of the day, it worked out.
Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about, Rob, because I have a website that I've been trying to make for like the last 6 months or so, and it's specifically just to Omaha, but it's haunted houses from the 70s and the 80s and maybe the early 90s from around here, and I want to collect photos and stuff like that, and
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, because it's the haunted houses of my youth. So
and what's it called?
It's called wickedplaza.com.
And why is it called Wicked Plaza? Sorry, I'm dragging this out.
Yeah, sorry, Rob. You don't know what we're talking about here, but it's because there's a place called Westgate Plaza, and that's where there are always haunted houses. So I changed it to Wicked Plaza. But I know exactly what you're talking about because of the same age situation. I mean, everything from when those happened was before the internet, and these guys are old now, and they're, it's hard to even get a hold of people to try to get some of that stuff. So
right.
So that's why I was so blown away with all the footage you got and all.
Oh man, I'm checking out your website right now. I love it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. That's so. I mean, something about like old vintage photos. Like I don't know. To me, that's like really cool, and it's so haunting. You know what I mean? But it's also. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was something to do with like the lens or whatever they were using back then. But I mean, any like old, like I see the photo of like the Mystery Manor hearse you have.
Yeah.
So cool.
So, well, thanks. I'm glad you like that. So it's mutual.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to kind of go back and think about all these things. So, Rob, on behalf of our other co-hosts, Wayne, Lori, and Zip, Doug and I just want to thank you so much for being a part of the show tonight. And everybody out there, you need to see this documentary. It's called Halloween in a Box. You can stream it wherever you stream all your entertainment needs. Now, is there a separate website? There's a Facebook page for the movie, correct?
Yep, that's right. It's under HNN Productions. So if you look up HNN Productions, you'll find it on there.
And that H. And it's Horror News
Network Productions. That's what it stands for. But on Facebook, if you type in HNN Productions, you'll find it.
Very good. And the name of your website that you have all the news and everything?
It's that is horrornewsnetwork.net.
Very good. We want to make sure that you got as much Necronomicast traffic as possible
Thank you guys.
towards your venues. Yeah, so once again, we want to thank you for being part of the show. Everybody go stream the show. It's been our pleasure to have Rob Caprilozzi. Is that how you say it?
Close enough. Caprilozzi.
God, Capra.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like the director,
it's crazy.
Capra.
Anyway, hey man, it's been great having you on the show. Best of luck to you with everything that you do. Hopefully you got another documentary in you because, first time, man. You got beginner's luck, I guess.
You nailed it.
I guess so. Thank you guys so much, and I really appreciate talking to you. You guys are really awesome. I'm sure if you lived in Connecticut, we'd be hanging out.
Oh, yeah.
Very good. Hey, thanks again, Rob.
Take it easy, guys. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Necronomicast, a podcast hosted by a bunch of blood bags and produced by Brian Corey and Wayne Brecky. For show notes and other interesting information, go to the show page at necronomicast.com. And until next time, find something better to do with your time.